Namaste. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to part 2 of our Breathing into Wellness mini course. I hope you've enjoyed part 1, and I hope that even in its simplicity it's been able to provide you some of that ease, that lightness that we've been so sorely missing in a world at a time so filled with fear and anxiety. To start part 2, we'll be doing a brief recap on part 1. In part 1, we examined how the breath and the nervous system are intimately linked, that with any fluctuation of mind and emotion or nervous system, you'll see a corresponding fluctuation of breath. We have also discovered that the relationship cuts both ways, that when we change the way we breathe, we can also in return affect the state of nervous system, which proves really useful when we want to shift away from the burden of our fight and flight activation toward the ease, the calm, the wellness of our rest and relaxation nervous system activation. Also in part 1, we've discovered, as simple as the practice may have been, in spite of all its little details, it's not necessarily just about technique, but attitude as well. That the more we awaken with each breath through that sense of softness, step by step, an attitude that is leisurely and gentle, the more you find the breath creates this virtuous, positive feedback loop. That attitude brings a gentleness to the breath. The breath brings a softness to the subsequent one, enabling a lighter attitude to be applied in return for the breath again to be even gentler and softer. Without the right attitude, not only is the technique dry and without benefit, but it can also be detrimental, especially when people do this forcefully. So bear this in mind. Let this be at the essence of all that we do throughout the rest of the course, that every technique is incomplete without this attitude of softness, kindness, tenderness. The next practice that we're about to explore is often spoken about as abdominal breathing. The term itself is perhaps a bit odd, because it is the lungs that breathe and not the abdomen. A more accurate and technical term for this mode of breathing may be tension-free inherent breath. To better understand this terminology, we do have to waddle through a little bit of anatomy first. The way our lungs work is perhaps not unlike a syringe. The exchange of gas within the lungs are effected through the different muscles of respiration around it. As these muscles engage and relax, they enact upon the space within which the lungs sit, the thoracic cavity. And where this space is pulled or changed tends to determine where gas is drawn primarily to, because the lungs are in fact quite complex with many different branches, many different components and compartments for gas exchange within it. So the diaphragm is a key muscle of respiration, and as you'll see in the image, it runs like a dome-shaped sheet of muscle attached to the very base of the lungs, inserting far down towards the bottom ribs and spine. And based on the striations or the stripes you see along the muscle, you can infer that the muscle has an inclination of wanting to draw the top edge of its attachment down towards the abdominal organs. Now, this is a pretty significant element to understanding the nature of abdominal breath. The ribs create a tight, closed environment to protect the lungs, whereas the belly is soft, with a lot of space for the organs to then be moved around. So when the diaphragm lowers to a soft belly, you'll find that it pushes the abdominal organs out and distends the abdomen, therefore the name of the practice often being called abdominal breathing. But not only does that happen, when the diaphragm lowers, the pressure changes draw breath primarily to the lower lobes of the lungs. And this is significant because with gravity, as we're most often upright, the bulk of the blood supply to the lungs tend to drop to the lower lobes. And where we have the most blood supply is also where gas exchange becomes the most efficient and effective. However, this natural movement of the diaphragm can be blocked for many reasons. Stress, certainly one of them. Because when we shift into an elevated state of fight or flight, our nervous system starts to trigger an increase in muscle tone, which means that muscles start to contract, if not to slight degrees, then to stronger levels of intensity. And this happens around the abdominal region in order for us to either face the problem by fighting through it or running away from it. And when the abdominal region is tensed, it starts to constrict the abdominal cavity, and it denies the abdominal organs of distending that soft belly and therefore the diaphragm from dropping down. In order for us to then have the same degree of gas exchange, we now need other muscles, such as the muscles around the neck, to help us lift the ribs upwards instead. And when the neck muscles are used consistently to help us compensate for this process of breathing, which they are not intended for, by the way, they then start to build in strain and stress, creating pain and discomfort, which of course only serves to reinforce within us that there is some threat and difficulty, therefore requiring an elevated state of fight or flight again, tensing into the abdominal muscles again. This is a common vicious cycle with the way we breathe, but it is not just the neck muscles. The very act of breathing toward the middle and upper lobes of the lungs, where blood supply is not as rich, is in itself not as easeful and efficient, therefore also triggering the fight or flight response in its inefficiency to reduce and dispel carbon dioxide within the bloodstream. Now that we've understood a little more of the anatomy of breath, it becomes very clear that we need to do the opposite, to allow the diaphragm to drop and to move according to its natural inclination, and to know that this will start to draw breath to the lower lobes of the lungs again, where blood flow is far richer, and therefore gas exchange is far more efficient. This use of the diaphragm, the larger muscle of respiration, the one that is custom built and designed for this very purpose itself, tends to increase that sense of ease within the body already. That sense of ease then starts to recalibrate nervous system toward the rest and relaxation response. But by drawing blood to the lower lobes that have much greater blood supply, you find that breath exchange or gas exchange is also more efficient there, therefore deepening this physiological state of ease and rest and relaxation nervous system activation. So the moment we move into this abdominal breath, we start to create a virtuous cycle, enabling a deeper state of peace and calm with each and every breath. Also, having understood that this practice is inhibited by tension, we should then appreciate that the reverse cannot be effected through more effort. To be forceful in our practice of abdominal breathing would only exacerbate the state of fight or flight. And I've seen so many people try this with abdominal breathing to forcefully push their bellies in and out. How can that possibly be more relaxing? And so in this way, we start to appreciate that the practice is in fact a process of reduction. Through the appropriate attitude, we start to learn ways to mindfully deactivate areas of muscle engagement and tension all around the abdomen. The lower abdomen, the middle abdomen, the upper abdomen, the deeper aspects of abdominal muscles, but also all the different chest muscles, bringing ease through the neck muscles as well. And once we have that sense of ease, you may find that the body very naturally uses the diaphragm in its inherent manner. Hence, the technical term for this perhaps is better known as a tension-free inherent breath, meaning it is not meant to have an exertion around it. In many ways, we're looking to do less to allow the body to then do what it does best, already as it is. Of course, when we're talking about a breathing practice in this way, attitude makes all the difference. So build upon last week's practice, deepening this sense of leisureliness, tenderness around the breathing process. And let's prepare for a practice. If you feel to sit, please be careful that your position is supported, that enables you to be entirely relaxed, but yet with the spine in its neutral alignment. The moment we have this forward hunching or backward arching, we change again the space within abdomen and chest for breath. But if space permits, please feel free to lie comfortably, eyes and lips gently closed regardless of position. Take time to feel through the body very systematically from the feet up, noticing the sensations there and how they change as you experiment with your position. The more you play around with the position, the more sensations the body offers to you. Then choose which position offers you the greatest state of comfort. Addressing whatever that can be addressed, leaving whatever cannot be addressed, moving from the feet slowly up through the legs, adjusting and relaxing. Through the hips, finding evenness, symmetry, before searching for that perfect angle for the lower back, tilting the pelvis. Continuing to feel up the spine, wriggling as you like. Experimenting with your placement of hands and arms. See how they affect the shoulders, shoulder blades. Continuing to scan neck and head. Looking to create a little more space at the back of the neck. To align the head, to soften the face. And once you have all that you need, you know this is as comfortable as you can be positioned. Allow the body to rest into this posture. Know that you have already done everything possible, therefore no other effort is required. You might like to mentally test this idea, this concept, knowing that you are supported by chair, by floor. Start to imagine what would happen if you were to completely relax, if every muscle in the body were to completely switch off. Would the floor or chair fail to support you? Very unlikely. And how would you feel if you were to completely deactivate now? Would that feeling be one of greater discomfort or comfort? Hold this feeling in mind and let this be the start of our virtuous cycle as you start to feel the breath within the body. In this relaxed and leisurely manner, start to draw a slower but fuller breath in. Remember, this need not be 100% of your breath capacity. Mouth open, switching off, freely letting go. Feel free to start these releasing breaths at 50-60% of lung capacity, so it keeps that sense of ease within you. Stay deeply connected to the experience of each breath, knowing that every breath provides a new possibility for the next. That as you stay present with the exhalation, you may find this wave of softness that goes through not only body but mind, enabling a deeper state of leisureliness with the next breath in. For the next breath in to reach maybe 70, 80% of lung capacity. Equally being completely connected to the sensation of breath to refine the breath on exhalation. Total deactivation. Passively letting breath just stream out of you. Heeding the sensations in the body breath by breath to know when to deepen, when to slow, but also when for the mind to take that step back, especially on exhalation. That as you release breath, the mind sits back and waits patiently, watching the breath flow out, waiting to feel that subtle hint in the body that says, I'm ready to breathe in. Only then breathing in without rushing or delaying the breath. Three more breaths in this way. Stay in that quiet, patient, observant phase at the end of this exhalation, noticing all the different sensations around the abdominal region. Often those earlier releasing breaths of their own help to relax any engagement in the abdomen. But it is not unusual that some linger. So as you scan through every fiber of muscle, lower abdomen, middle abdomen, upper abdomen, around the sides and deeper within, take your time to feel for every fiber and notice if there is some constriction, some tension. If so, tenderly coax these muscles into relaxing, letting them know that, hey, nothing's going to go wrong. The floor supports you, the chair supports you. Give the muscles the opportunity for rest. And then continue to scan up toward the chest, carefully checking back from the base of the sternum if anything's caught there. Any kind of constriction between the ribs, around the larger chest muscles. Remembering to bring tenderness with your awareness. Lovingly coaxing these muscles into a state of rest. Then continuing to do this from the collarbones up through the neck, all around the neck and deep within. Notice if the body breathes in a different manner now that you have diminished tension around the breath. Notice where you feel the movement of breath most. And if you're not familiar with this process, please feel free to place one hand over the navel and the other hand around the sternum at the chest just below the collarbones. Use the hands to help increase proprioceptive feedback to notice where the movement is felt predominantly. If you find that the bulk of the movement is at the chest with the ribs still lifting a lot, then appreciate that perhaps there is still quite a bit of tension in abdomen and chest and neck. Scan through again, unlocking, releasing, but being patient with the process, giving emphasis to the attitude, not the technique here. Take time. But if you find the movement of the breath more isolated toward the movement at the belly, simply leave the awareness at the abdominal region, noticing each movement of each breath. Make no effort to control the breath. Surely that would only add to more tension. Make no effort to even judge or comment about the breath. Just to maintain this tension-free state of body in order for the body to breathe naturally in its own fashion now. Content to just notice the expansion and contraction like movement around the abdomen with each breath. If you find that you no longer need the hands for feedback, you're able to experience this of your own, feel free to relax the arms. As you continued with the practice, you may notice different moments in which tension creeps in at different areas. Let the entire practice be a process of reduction. Always open to where excess effort is being held. Release. Allowing the whole process of breath to be as spontaneous and natural as possible. Appreciating that we often hold many layers of tension, some of which never surfaces until we take time to really closely examine. So be patient. And start to notice how different the breath might feel now, having met the breath with this tenderness and leisureliness. See for yourself if the breath feels softer, if it seems slower, if there is perhaps even a sweetness. And notice if this changes anything else physically. Mentally, emotionally. Note this before reconnecting with your environment, recalling where you are before gently introducing movements to help you awaken. Take deeper breaths, stretch and reach as you like. Wait till you're ready before sitting up, opening the eyes only when you feel to. The practice is now complete. I would highly recommend this practice being done at least once a day. And once you get the hang of what we're doing, it can be done at any point in time without the need of the recording either. As long as you remember, most importantly, that this abdominal breathing, or better termed tension-free inherent breath, is a process of reduction. There is no way to do more to get better at it. It's a practice of doing less to allow what is within us to naturally unfold. And this is best effected through a shift in our attitudes toward tenderness and leisureliness. Thank you so much for being with me through part 2 of our Breathing into Wellness course. I hope the practice has offered you some ease, some comfort. Stay tuned for part 3, where we'll start to explore a full yogic breath. But for now, be well, take care, Namaste.